Good evening, everybody. This is Ron Tyler with the Emergency Management Associates coming to you live from the Crossroads of the West in Salt Lake City, Utah. We want to bring you live to a broadcast right now, live from Hawaii. And I am going to enter this broadcast live right now so you can be part of this broadcast. This is from Hawaii. Presently a news conference directly from Hawaii on how they
1,000 people live, who are U.S. citizens, live in China. We have received and we expect to receive people from China as we go. As you see, the number has increased, first of all, and is fluctuating. Of individuals that we're monitoring at home, they are self-monitoring with close follow-up from Dr. Park's team. That number, which is at 26 now, is going to fluctuate some because some people are going to come in from China. Some people are going to exit the 14-day period of self-quarantine, and they are all well, all of them right now. They're safe. Some people also move on to their final destinations through Hawaii. So again, we reiterate, none of those individuals have tested positive because they haven't even needed testing. They've been asymptomatic. I will rely on Director Anderson and Dr. Park to correct me or interrupt me anywhere. This is very complicated material at different times. So again, these 26 individuals do not have any symptoms and they're being very carefully monitored. Now, in addition to that, there is an additional development. At 10:50 this morning, we were alerted that an individual came into Honolulu Airport who had been in the Hubei province a few days ago, just 2 days ago, on February 8th. Per the mandate that the federal government has asked us to adhere to, any individual who has been in the Hubei province within 2 weeks is placed into a mandatory 14-day quarantine. And as you know, we have discussed that quarantine would be at Pearl Harbor. This individual is a Hawaii resident. They're asymptomatic. They're not sick. The individual lives here. That's why they're back here in Hawaii. They do not have any symptoms. They will be monitored very closely at Pearl Harbor and by our Department of Health in coordination with our CDC personnel. They were taken immediately to our assessment at the airport, and they will go to Pearl Harbor by AMR. So let me again be clear, this person is asymptomatic. However, we've made a commitment to make sure we take no risks. We're in very deep discussions about the absolute best way to address individuals who have been in China, in Hubei, and in other places. These are complicated discussions, and there is no perfect answer. But the answer that we settled on as the best answer to keep everyone safe right now was to, at this moment, put them into the Pearl Harbor facility. This does not mean we will not continuously revisit what's safest and best for the people of Hawaii, but we wanted to take every safety precaution. We rely on the CDC to communicate with us on all these matters. They've been very communicative. We also will have them communicate with the private sector to make sure that no one else has been, at least even in contact with individuals, though we don't have concern. They, again, were asymptomatic. A couple other points. We will be able to test in the state of Hawaii in the coming days. Those kits have now been coming here. It is important that our lab gets up to speed, and then we will share that testing process with you over at the state lab. I personally called our congressional delegation, Speaker of the House, and the Senate President to alert the team of what we were doing. They understand and support the matter. But again, we want to make sure that everyone has up-to-date information. We have quickly reached out to you because we want people to be confident that they're not being exposed to coronavirus, because once again, for the probably fifth time, we have 0 cases of coronavirus in the state that have tested positive. So I will stop there, and I'll then give it back to Bruce and Sarah.
Lieutenant Governor Green's spoken about many of the issues. Let me say just a few things to fill in perhaps some of the gaps that the mics are okay the way they are, right? First of all, I wanted to emphasize that the situation in Hawaii is very stable. And in fact, I've been very pleased that across the country we're not seeing a huge increase in the number of cases. Today's report was consistent with what we heard last week. There's still only 12 individuals who have been identified as having been infected, and all of those individuals have been exposed to Hubei province, and very likely picked up the infection there, except for 2 that were close contacts and were exposed to the individuals who were there and were infected there. So the good news is that the person-to-person transmission that we have feared is not apparently at least a huge problem here in the United States yet. Having said that, it is a growing problem throughout China. We read in the paper today that there were over 5,000 individuals who exited Hubei province before it was closed down. So the situation's changing worldwide, and we need to recognize that as we recognize our policies on how we handle individuals who are from China or other places. I expect this is a very fluid situation, and we're going to have to adapt to it. But the way we're handling our cases is the same way that all of the states are handling their cases. We're very fortunate that we're not a state that's having to deal with hundreds of individuals who have been to China. We're dealing with a couple of dozen, and that number changes as people come and go. But those people who are exposed, who have been to China, are all being carefully monitored, both through a self-monitoring program and also by our health department as necessary. So I'm very comfortable that we're dealing with the issues as best we can here in Hawaii. And we're actually very lucky to have had only one individual so far who's been in that region within that 14-day transmission period. The lab test is going to give us the ability to quickly to determine if the individual has been exposed to this virus. If someone's sick, more than likely they're going to be found to have the flu. That's a much more common illness, and if this individual does come down with symptoms, he will be transported to a hospital where he'll be evaluated and handled appropriately at that point. So far, he has not shown any signs or symptoms of illness. In fact, he's a very healthy individual. So very likely that will continue to be the case. We're resolving any uncertainties in favor of protecting public health here, and sometimes going to what everyone would consider an extreme to try to be sure that we're doing what we can to keep our community healthy and well. So with that, let me open up the floor for any questions. Again, we have Dr. Sarah Park with us, whose division is responsible for following up on cases and contacts and so forth. And if you have questions on how we're dealing with those individuals, feel free to, of course, get a little more information from her on that score. We're working very closely with the Centers for Disease Control. Let me add one more thing that I should have said. The individuals in the custody of the Centers for Disease Control through the international processes, if there is a problem or if there is an effort to try to identify contacts or to try to identify other potential problems overseas, the Centers for Disease Control will take the lead on that particular issue. We're responsible for the individual when they get here to Hawaii, and again, we take that responsibility very seriously. But for many of the questions that you might have as to how that person come to Hawaii and so forth, you're going to need to call the Centers for Disease Control and get that information from them. We probably won't be able to answer that question. Again, with that, let's open it up for questions.
So this individual traveling by himself, and could you go through the protocols of how it was found out that he had been to Hubei province, as well as the protocols as for taking that person to the quarantine facility?
I'll have Sarah address the technical protocols on that.
There we go. Okay. You guys really need to have a trolley system.
Ask things about that.
So, as the Lieutenant Governor said, we were notified by CDC, the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, regarding the traveler who had recently returned from Hubei province within the last 14 days. Our understanding is this is a lone traveler, and there are no other individuals that we have to worry about monitoring. I also want to stress this is a Hawaii resident. This is one of our own. We need to take care of our community, and that includes people coming home. The individual has been very compliant thus far. They have very appropriate concerns for their family, for not wanting to cause more problems for Hawaii. Again, their home, our home. So very, very cooperative with the situation and very appropriately concerned. So we're all working together to make sure, even though, again, he's healthy, he is well, that, we do not unnecessarily cause any further concerns down the road, and we're all just complying at this point with the mandatory quarantine that is required of all travelers that return from Hubei province within the past 14 days.
Let me add, you asked about the process a little bit. Let me clarify that. Jump in, Dr. Park. You too. The Customs and Border Patrol are the agents responsible for the initial contact. They determine the travel history of the individual, and in this case, the individual had come from China, and in fact had visited Hubei province while he was there. They will take that history. They will also screen the individual for any adverse health effects that they may be experiencing, and then pass that individual ultimately on to the Department of Health. If the individual is staying here in Hawaii, if the person's a resident or planning to stay for any length of time, they would be we would be given that information that they've collected, and then we can follow up on the individual. We have the name, address, and so forth of the individual. Many of the individuals here are simply passing through Hawaii. In fact, in addition to the 26 that we're monitoring here, there are undoubtedly many of those passengers just simply going on to other places, to home, which is almost invariably on the mainland. We have a handful of individuals who are residents here who have come back home, and they are being self-monitored simply because they have had some exposure in China. The unique thing about this single individual is that he was in Hubei province, which is considered to be of high risk, higher than the rest of China. Now that may be changing over time. As we all know, we're learning more and more about movement and so forth there. But as it is, the CDC and HHS have mandated that anyone who's coming from that province needs to go to through this quarantine period.
And this is, I would add to what Bruce says, even some more detail. This individual, we understand, was not in Wuhan, was in a more remote area, and even had less risk. But we are playing this by the letter of the law. The Department of Health and Human Services, the CDC, the federal government, when they made their announcement about funneling individuals through the 11 airports, and also the recommendation that anyone that's been in Hubei province, this individual was in Hubei province, so it became somewhat black and white, they would be quarantined, and it would be a mandatory quarantine. We have a lot of expert medical advice, professional advice to keep us safe on many levels, but in these early instances, because there will be more people returning home from China, for sure. We have to watch how the coronavirus behaves across the rest of the world. We do not know yet if it's only going to be one center of heightened activity in Wuhan, or if there are others. We hope that there will not be. But we have to be prepared long term, and we also will have to be flexible, because if this were, as Dr. Park pointed out to me earlier, if this becomes a global pandemic, it will change everything. It will change all of our capacity in every jurisdiction across the country and world on how you deal with an epidemic like that. But for now, this is also a good test for us to put an individual into the federal quarantine at the base to make sure we can give them perfect services, to make sure that they are comfortable and safe. And if they were to get sick, We have excellent hospitals, each of which are capable of providing the full testing and care because of the hard work that Dr. Park and Dr. Anderson have done these last few days. So we are completely capable to handle whatever medical concern there is. It's highly likely that this individual will ride out 14 days and will then return to their regular life. But we don't want to make take any risk or make any exceptions until we can respond to what the virus is globally. So we're being very safe.
Can you tell us what airline they came from? And what about the people who traveled with them on the plane? Are they at risk?
I can. Oh, sorry, Bruce. Oh, sorry. We're going to rely on the CDC to communicate with both media and any members of other traveling groups, families, and so on. I will say this: we have a very low concern for any individual that's in the screening group of 26 or this individual, and I'll tell you why. All of these individuals have been asymptomatic. And we have also, in conversations with the CDC and experts across the country, learned that people, number one, are only testing positive if they happen to have coronavirus. They're only testing positive once they have symptoms. There's been some discussion, I'm going to defer to Dr. Park on this, about exactly when people are infectious. But for the most part, with viruses like these, it's when people are really quite sick. That's when they're most infectious. I don't want to say there is no risk, but we would be a lot more concerned if this was an individual coming in hot who had been very sick on a plane. It's an utterly different circumstance. We will, though, out of kind of an abundance of caution to not scare anybody, only let the CDC appropriately share how people travel and who they traveled with.
So if this individual who is quarantined, if it does turn out to be a confirmed case, I know you said it's asymptomatic, but what is the likelihood of the people who's traveling with and the flight crew, they are now infected, if this is
Very low. There have been comments or questions about asymptomatic transmission. There was even a paper that seemed to suggest it, but since has been disproven because it turned out that the person that they had published their work on turned out they actually weren't asymptomatic. So at this point, and what we also know about coronaviruses and most pathogens in general, we know that you're most likely infectious when you're symptomatic. That is the assumption. So for the persons that traveled on the plane with this individual, again, as Lieutenant Governor, as our director has said, this person and I've said, this person is well, healthy, no symptoms. Likelihood of him having transmitted anything very low at this point. And as a precaution and following the federal guidelines for mandatory quarantine, we are following that, and we are putting him in quarantine at this time. That's the precaution we're taking, but the risk from this particular healthy individual, very low.
how long does it take for symptoms to show up?
That is still being discussed, but there's a preliminary paper looking at a cohort of patients that suggests it may be somewhere around 5 days on average. But again, we're looking at being safe and cautious because we don't have full understanding. And when I say we, that's the entire public health medical community. So we know that the coronavirus's incubation period can be as short as 2 days to as long as 14 days, and hence that is why mandatory quarantine is for 14 days. We're probably going well and beyond where longer than need be, but until more is understood about this virus, we have to take that precaution. So 14 days. Same for the individuals being monitored under public health supervision coming from other parts of China. The monitoring process is for 14 days after they've left China.
So is the same true for the home quarantine patients if they have like children in the house or people who are around?
If others have not traveled, they are not at risk. The quarantine monitoring does not apply to them. It only applies to the person involved, okay, the person who traveled. As a precaution and a good test of our systems, the person is being remanded to the Pearl Harbor facility. However, that's being reevaluated. But, in this case, it's a test again, because we know family members, et cetera. It's a way to obviate that potential question down the road, because they continue not to be at risk. Okay, again, many things need to be still learned about this virus. So this is just to help us, federal government, our scientific partners, to be able to further understand what potentially poses a real risk or not. And by doing the things that we're doing, being especially conservative, shall we say, that is hopefully going to help us all in the long run.
To get your question a little bit more, if the individuals, any of these individuals, developed symptoms and were found to be positive for this novel coronavirus, then we would certainly be following up on any close contacts they had, which of course would be the family and those that they spent time with. So things change when that happens. Fortunately, that hasn't happened. We haven't had anyone even ill who we're monitoring, much less found to be infected with this virus. If that were the case, the odds were it would probably be because they were exposed to the flu, not this virus. That's the reality of the situation.
Let me remind people about that and 2 or 3 other things. So the large quarantines that have occurred at military bases are basically when large numbers of people were being repatriated to the United States. And there were 1,000 individuals that came out of the Wuhan province and went into the military bases. So in those cases, there were large clusters of people, and it was the best approach. So we're learning from our partners in these other states. We are taking the precaution, as Dr. Park has said, so we can also compare and contrast what the best approach is. Keep in mind, there have already been 22 million cases of the flu, if I'm not mistaken, in the United States this year. 22 million cases, of which 1 out of 1,000 people will die. So please get your flu shots, wash your hands, be aware that is very prevalent. There have been 12 cases, as opposed to 22 million. 12 cases of coronavirus, and has there been a fatality? Not in the U.S. So we are cognizant of how serious it can be. Our hearts go out to the individuals that have passed in China, for the most part, but we have good containment at present. These are examples of what a Western healthcare system can offer. We have a lot of additional resources that a lot of countries aren't fortunate enough to have. We have good partners with the military. We have great partners within the Department of Health, Department of Transportation, and of course at airports and CDC. So this is about an abundance of caution, comprehensive communication, but we have to be also mindful of the end game, which is if we end up having a lot of individuals that have concern, that have traveled, if people start coming back, we'll constantly reevaluate the best way to keep people safe, and that's where we'll lean very heavily on Dr. Anderson, Dr. Park, and input from other experts at the university and elsewhere.
So just to clarify, Bill, this person arrived in Honolulu 2 days ago?
Today, forgive me.
Okay,
Yeah.
but he was in China 2 days ago.
The individual, he was in China, this individual was in Hubei province on February 8th, traveled to other regions of China, and then traveled here indirectly. So only arriving this morning, we pulled this together, even with some robust discussion amongst ourselves on how fast to report our information here. But we are lighting a fire under ourselves also to make sure we're fully protected and we are able to demonstrate that we can, if necessary, fully mandatory quarantine someone. We're also lighting a fire under our federal colleagues that if there are going to be any changes or quick tilts or moves, that we're ready to deal with it. But this person only arrived, I believe, at 8:30 or 9 this morning, and within an hour we were aware. Within 2 hours from that, we were asking you to come and share the information with the public.
How long was he in China and Dubai?
I can't answer those questions. We're going to defer those questions to our CDC colleagues. And really, the more important thing is to recognize that we have been notified about this traveler who has recent travel within the past 14 days. We're complying with the federal order for mandatory quarantine, and we're monitoring the situation, as has been said by others, evaluating what is the best option for addressing these travelers, because there will be more probably. very likely, maybe not from Wuhan, maybe not from Hubei specifically, maybe in future we may hear another country is having community transmission. We have to consider that. All the more important that all of us now practice the infection prevention messages now. I mean, imagine what flu season would be. We pretty much wouldn't see a flu season if we actually were effectively practicing infection preventions now. Washing your hands. Don't touch your face unless your hands are washed. Cover your cough or nose, your sneeze if you are sick. And staying home. This for all employers and employees to really think about what does that look like. Staying home and really staying home when you're sick. Because that's what we're talking about now. This traveler we should all take as an alert for us that the risk is real, that potential is that at some point down the road we will see community transmission. So how do we protect ourselves? We protect ourselves starting now, practicing those simple, what sound like very simple measures, but you would, I think, all agree that last one, stay home when you're sick. We see it all the time. People do not really follow that situation, and so we all seriously need to start thinking about that to help our community.
I'll be, forgive me, one additional thing to that, to Dr. Park's point. So I'll be addressing, and we're going to do this several times, the workforce leadership at 3 o'clock today or when we finish. They've already put out some very excellent workplace recommendations, which you've just heard about, okay, just here. We're going to convey these comprehensively through all of our union members, to all of the workforce across the state. It is important to realize, once again, we have 0 cases of coronavirus. We have also a lot of cases of influenza. And people in their minds and in their hearts confuse what disease they might have or might be suffering from because it's fever, it's coughing, it's terrible respiratory illness, both. If you are feeling that way, believe me, you've got the flu right now. You do not have coronavirus. But we also want that to be very clear that we're ahead of that, because if in the coming weeks and months we do end up having some cases of coronavirus before the flu season is completely done, it will be very, very difficult for us to quarantine all individuals or even home quarantine or home monitor if we have these populations mixed. And so to Dr. Park's excellent points, we are thinking ahead already 2 and 3 steps. I know it's easier for us to focus on, oh my goodness, one individual came from the Hubei province, what are we doing? But really we're thinking about the thousands of individuals that we would have to deal with if we don't do a good job.
To clarify about the home quarantine, how many people are in home quarantine and what does that mean? Is it like mandated? Are people checking on them? Can they leave?
So quarantine, so home quarantine or quarantine in general is an actual requirement that that person be separated from the rest of society for a specific period of time. In this case, we're talking 14 days from the last point of exposure, and the point of exposure we're all talking about is China. Okay, and for mandatory quarantine, that applies to those individuals who've traveled from Hubei province. Okay. The next level down is the monitoring, okay, or I should say up, really, I guess, because in terms of it's not quite as it's not a mandatory quarantine order. It's a request to the individuals to separate themselves from society, to self-monitor under public health supervision. That applies to the travelers from China in general, not including the special administrative regions of Hong Kong, Macau, as well as Taiwan, and not including Hubei because Hubei falls under the more restrictive. If any of these individuals become ill, and ill specifically with criteria that we're looking for that makes us suspect potentially having the novel coronavirus, that would be fever and cough or difficulty breathing, shortness of breath, then those individuals we would immediately say, you're a suspect case, we need to put you, we're in quarantine, we're definitely all in quarantine. And if we, as we test you, we confirm you as having the novel coronavirus, now you're in isolation. So we're talking about, I guess, the least restrictive being monitoring monitoring. The next restrictive being quarantine. Isolation, if you start to hear me talking about isolating someone, it means we've actually confirmed a case, okay? So isolation, I reserve, when I'm talking about it, if I ever say that word, we're talking about a confirmed case. I am not saying that at this time. There are no confirmed cases. We have no patient under investigation or person under investigation. We do have an individual now that does require mandatory quarantine according to the federal guidelines. We do have a number of individuals we're monitoring that are under monitoring with public health supervision. As our director has said, some of them are Hawaii residents. Some of them are transiting through Hawaii to try to get home. And try to look at from their all of these travelers' perspectives. They just want to go home.
So are some at a hotel?
Potentially.
So just to clarify, so that's 27, right? 26 self-quarantine.
Yeah, not including this one new person.
Yes.
And let me emphasize, that number's going to change
Right.
every day. I mean, honestly, we were talking about 7 a week ago, and I expect tomorrow we'll have a different number for you. People are coming and going all the time. Yeah. So whether they stay here for 2 days or a week, they're counted as being here. So the 26 that you hear about are people who are here now who are being self-monitored with public health supervision.
Clarify. Are they in Waikiki?
We cannot give you the information. We will not. This is, you all know this, every outbreak or whatnot, for the privacy to protect the individuals, we will let you know the county, but that is it. So
many of the 26 are moving on to the mainland.
That'll change.
That's fluid.
Yeah. So they're either being under a self-monitoring regime in their home or where they're currently being lodged, and that could be at a hotel or wherever they are. But their movements are monitored. Their health conditions are monitored every day, and we're following up on all those individuals. And again, this is a moving target. They're coming and going. There's no restriction on those from medium risk areas, essentially from China, coming here for a few days and then going on home. That happens all the time. Or they may go home immediately. They may come here. We'll count them into that count while they're here, and then they go on. So as long as they're here for any length of time, we're considering them part of the self-monitoring program.
What does that monitoring look like? Is that phone calls by the Department of Health?
Correct.
Is that CDC's purview to check in with these individuals?
So to be quite frank, because honestly, 26 may sound a lot, 7 whatnot, but compared with jurisdictions like New York City that are seeing thousands, okay, they are literally seeing thousands. We decided to be a little bit more proactive because at this point in time, we felt we could handle it. And although CDC has not expressly required we actively monitor those individuals, we are. In that CDC has told all states that at least check in initially with these individuals, check in maybe sometime during, and then maybe at the end, and even maybe you don't need to do it in the middle and just check them, just sort of release them at the end. That's what they've told jurisdictions. In Hawaii, we're taking it a step further just to, honestly, because there have been so many complex levels, to make it simple, we basically said any of these individuals that require monitoring, we're checking in with them on a daily basis via phone primarily, just making sure they're okay. Especially if it's a visitor, we want to make sure that they have someone they can feel like they're connected with to help them on their way. But essentially, we'll continue to connect with them on a daily basis until that 14-day period is over, and then we release them, and they're welcome to go about their regular life at that point. But it goes back to stressing the fact that these people are well, they're healthy. We're monitoring just in case they develop any kind of illness. The very, very big likelihood is if they develop illness, it's going to be flu. Lieutenant Governor has commented about flu season. I'll remind everyone that here in Hawaii, while we talk about flu season, just like the rest of the country, we see flu year-round. Yeah. All year round. We just happen to see a little bit heavier activity around the time of traditional flu season, but we see plenty of flu in the summer when other states might not be, so active. We see flu in late spring. We see flu in early fall. We see it year round, and that's why we're talking about infection prevention issues, about keeping in mind that more commonly Lee, you're going to have flu versus this novel coronavirus, but it is important to understand that the basic infection prevention measures still apply whether it's flu or this virus.
And one thing also, all of these individuals have remained well. That's another very good, important point. So we aren't worried that there is any kind of rogue behavior where people are walking around, and we wouldn't condone it. That's why we're following up with every individual. People are aware. You'd be amazed how serious others around them take this. So we all care about our families equally. We are going to continue to follow up on every individual and their health, and we take every precaution. So the first sniffle or cough or fever, believe me, we're right on top of it because we have the capacity at this point with a small number of individuals. All these people are more well than the director, I can tell you right now.
Probably true. Let me say, I said this the last time we had, you all, media, have a huge role to play here. Virtually every case that we've had in the United States has been self-reported by someone who heard about it in the news. None of these people were caught at the airports, were screened and found to be infectious. They were all self-reporting. And then, of course, that allows people to follow up with their contacts and so forth. So that's critically important. When you have an incubation period as long as it has, the chances of actually finding someone at the airport is really pretty small. They have to have developed symptoms from the time they've departed, because they check them before they depart. They must develop symptoms on the plane, and then they have to be identified as being sick on the plane for that to happen. And that's simply not, the chances of that happening with a long incubation period is simply very remote. So please, if on you're as much a partner in this effort to try to contain this as anyone else is.
We'll take two questions more, and then we're going to wrap, then we can do some separate interviews.
For the Hawaii man who is under mandatory quarantine, is that under the purview of CDC, and what are the conditions of the quarantine station? What is this man going to be going through for the next 14 days?
I'll answer that just because it's quick. So the quarantine facility we have allows someone to be there without coming into contact with anyone else for a period of up to 14 days. That person will be monitored much the way that people are being monitored in their own homes. We'll be calling them, checking in on them periodically, and of course they would report to us if they have any problems. There's going to be someone there in this case to monitor their condition as they provide services. So it's a self-monitoring program, but also enhanced with having more oversight than most of the home monitoring that we do. And that's pretty much the way it is.
How do you get here from China if there are no flights?
Yes.
I'll answer those quick questions. So again, monitoring with support from Department of Health, CDC, Health and Human Services. We have contracts, of course, where we have medical personnel that can see and make sure people are fine. Remember, asymptomatic individual, the first moment that he or she is sick in quarantine, then we bring our medical personnel in to assess them and get them the right care. Okay, so it's very tight. It's essentially like a dormitory where you don't get to mix and mingle.
I have to correct you one thing. If they get sick, they're going to go to a hospital.
Yes, that's right. Yes.
If they develop symptoms, they go to a hospital to be evaluated, and then, of course, they're treated as, depending on what they find,
exactly,
they're treated appropriately. So that's the only way.
Absolutely correct. And then the other question was, how did they get here? The individual flew from China to another nation and then flew here. And so in that circumstance, because we have a complete ban on travel from China directly, and it's a very good question, it was not a flight from Shanghai or some other state part of China like that. So what we're going to see, first of all, eventually things are going to die down in China, and then people are going to ask the federal government when travel can resume directly. That's one thing. Secondly, we're far out from that. We won't worry about that today. But individuals are going to leave China or other places where there have been infections. They may fly to Australia. They may fly to Europe. But when individuals come from other places, we will still be vigilant where we have customs always to ask, have you been traveling? They'll see passports. They will be able to ask people good questions. We have Homeland Security personnel. We have CDC and our local health personnel. And then we have you guys to convey what our concerns are. So we have multiple levels. But no individual can honestly fly in from China right now. So that was the circumstance.
Can I,
Yeah, let me
clarify
add a
that?
couple things there. First of all, only U.S. citizens
Right.
come from China. I want to make that very clear.
Yes.
So this is a U.S. citizen who is returning from China to...
Well, U.S. citizens, green card holders, or parents of U.S. citizens, so children, right, who are U.S. citizens, their parents, their immediate family can come with them. So there is no travel ban specifically on China. It's just that in Hawaii, we do not have a direct flight from China. That's true. But this is a big world. There are many other places people can fly through. And I think this also it should be a reminder. China is a big country. I mean, it's a very big country, and it, I'm sure, is a gargantuan task for our Chinese colleagues over there to do an absolute lockdown. So there is always going to be the likelihood someone makes it out somehow, and we have to be mindful. And the safeguards that have been put in place by our federal colleagues are there to, as I've said in the past, to help put a bottleneck. We all recognize it may not be an absolute cork stopper on anything, and we have to recognize that. So it goes back again, the community infection prevention messages, they're important right now before we know about anything. Because if we start practicing them only when we learn about our first community transmitted case, then we're already behind. And I speak from the experience of 2009 H1N1.
Let me add one more thing to what Dr. Parker said. The fact that we were notified about this person who came indirectly from another country only points to the effectiveness of our screening programs. Virtually every international flight's been screened for travelers coming from China, and that's how this person was flagged. So the system is working to the extent that it is in place. So if someone's coming here, even if they're coming through another country, they will be identified when they come through Customs and Border Control. So again, the system's working. This was the first case that we've had where an individual has come from Hubei province. So I was pleased to see that it works, and I think we've got a pretty good system in place to protect our health. With that, I think we're going to have to probably bring this conference to a close, and be happy to answer questions individually if you have those. And of course,
can I just put one thing?
Yes, one more. Okay, only one.
Plug.
Okay, folks, this is Ron Tyler with the Emergency Management Associates. I am coming back to you live from the Crossroads of the West in Salt Lake City, Utah. I brought you in on that news conference directly from the Big Island of Hawaii because I wanted you to know exactly what is going on in that state because it's closer to China than any of the rest of us, number one. Number two, I wanted you to know the precautions that are taken to be able to protect each one of us. It's very important. I've been in on many of these briefings. Unfortunately, not every briefing can I bring. I can't bring all of you in on every briefing that I'm on. Fortunately, this was on the news, so I was able to link into it, so you could be a part of it. And I wanted you to see it. It's very important that all of you see it. Our friends that are on our channel from Hawaii, you got it directly from the sources, from the director of the Hawaii State Department of Health. You were able to hear it directly from a doctor right there. You also were able to hear it directly from the Lieutenant Governor of Hawaii. Now, I brought you in. You can do with that information as you want to, as you will. Earlier today and last night, we posted that video that we made as a documentary so you guys could have the most current information. It was current as of last night. You saw the You saw the blurb at the bottom of the screen that the number of documented cases, and this is the documented cases worldwide as reported from China, are over 40,000 cases. The death toll is over 1,000 people now. Now, that figure, I believe, is totally skewed because they are cremating, again, they're cremating 200 to 600 people a day. 200 to 600 people a day. They have 12 major cities in China that are now quarantined. 12 major cities. Millions and millions of people are quarantined throughout the country of China. They have more people quarantined in China than we have citizens here in the United States. Yes, we have people quarantined as well here in the United States. They have one person in Hawaii that is asymptomatic, meaning he has no symptoms, but he was in one of those cities that had the flu, that has been quarantined. That's why they have him quarantined in Hawaii. There are 19 people. 19 people, I believe that's the latest count in just California alone. They're in quarantine. I don't have the latest figures for the number of suspected cases in the United States, but we have people at Travis Air Force Base, we have people at March Air Force Base, we have people at Miramar Marine Corps Air Station in San Diego, we have people at a facility in Texas, an Air Force Base in Texas, and we have one over on the East Coast. We have now a total of 19 military bases that will be used as quarantine facilities as they are needed. Right now, I don't think all of those quarantine military bases or military quarantine areas are even being used at this point in time. But I wanted you to know what's going on. It's important that the public is informed. Our responsibility, as I see it, as we see it, is for the public safety. That's why we came on the air last April. Last April 3rd, we came on the air for the first time. We hope our programs are more and more professional. We hope we have better information on a day-to-day basis than we had way back in April, and it's continuing to get better and better. We've brought people on the air with us that could show you information, and we will continue to do so. I am in contact with Terry Rempel, and I will be giving you up-to-date information as Terry and I talk over the coming days. But Terry will not be joining me on this network. There are issues and reasons that he will not be doing that. Those are his issues, not mine. I have an open invitation for Terry to be on this program, and he's welcome to join me at any time. I will have people on this show that have pertinent information to share with you in regards to Cascadia, other earthquakes, volcanoes, natural disasters. I plan on doing a lot. We will have preparedness people that will be able to be joining us very shortly that have information on how to better take care of yourself. If you are sick or have a specific disease, or better take care of yourself, even if you're healthy, we're going to be having these people on. Because the better your health is now, when the disaster hits, when the emergency hits, the better position you will be in to take care of yourself and your family and others. Like I said, that's the basic foundation for this show, is the public safety. We've given you information on preparedness kits. We've given you information on how to put together emergency preparedness plans, and that is not going to end. We will continue to do that as well. I gave you information about Cascadia last night. I will be showing you some earthquakes right now. I understand we spent the last hour talking about coronavirus, but I thought it was absolutely necessary that you see what is going on so you can better protect yourself. The Dr. Green that was there did a very good job. And the other lady doctor did a very good job. And I believe they imparted good information to you so you could make decisions for yourself. That was the whole purpose. That was the whole purpose. And every time I thought I'd break in and take you away and go into earthquakes and Cascadia and everything else, another subject came up that I think was vital for you to be aware of. That's why we stayed with that news conference as long as we did. Yes, that news conference came from Hawaii, but that news conference could have occurred in New Jersey, Washington, D.C., Florida, Arkansas, Louisiana, Texas, California, Canada, Washington State, anywhere. And it would have been just as important for you to see. This situation is going on all over the world. And now you have a little bit of information that will bring you up to speed on the rest of the story. The rest of the story. That's why we brought you in on this particular issue. It's vital to everybody's personal interest. Everybody has the right to know. You really do. You have the right to know. And that's why we did it. Now, I'm going to go on to the other things we normally talk about, meaning earthquakes, but I want to make sure that we have adequately covered the information that you needed to know. Now, I want to bring up another screen here. I want to show you this information here. This is the current information that we were attempting to share with that news conference. This comes from CNN. And even though this is not a network I usually pull information from, it is fairly accurate at this point in time, as of about 3 hours ago. The Hubei Health Authority that we were talking more about, that man over, it's in Hawaii now, their health authority reported 103 more people died of the coronavirus in Hubei province on Monday. Now that's just one province out of 12. One province out of 12. Now again, I don't think they're being completely honest, because we also have information that they're cremating anywhere from 200 to 600 people a day in various parts of China. And the satellite information confirms that there's a rise in SO2 levels, sulfur dioxide, coming from the smoke that's coming from the crematoriums. When you cremate a body, when you cremate human tissue, it puts off SO2. There's so many people being cremated that the satellite picked up undue levels of sulfur dioxide. So this report that they 103 more people have died just in that province alone. I think it's probably more like 10 times that in that province. Okay, the epidemic's death toll at the epicenter is 974. Now it's over 1,000. That brings the total number of deaths in mainland China to over 1,011. Globally, a total of 1,013 people have died, including one death in Hong Kong and one in the Philippines just a few days ago. Hubei authorities confirmed an additional 2,097 cases of the virus in Hubei on Monday, which brings the total number of cases in the region to 31,728. But as you can see from the broadcast of the news conference, that those cases are over 40,000. Over 40,000 cases. More than 25,000 patients have been hospitalized in Hubei province in China, including 1,298 who are in critical condition there. And that's just in that province. The global number of confirmed corona cases now exceeds 42,500. The vast majority of cases remained in mainland China. China's National Health Commission is expected to release numbers for all of China's provinces later. Now, this was earlier today. They still haven't. Okay, where cases of coronavirus have been confirmed around the world. They've been confirmed in more than 24 countries, and health officials are working to contain the spread of the virus. Here's a look at where the cases are throughout the world, according to the World Health Organization, WHO. These numbers may differ from those reported by national health authorities, who report updated totals at different times than the World Health Organization. Okay, total cases now exceed 40,000. More deaths. They said deaths of 910. Now it's over 1,000, 1,011. Okay, Sweden even has a case over there. Sweden has a case over there in Northern Europe. Hong Kong, 36 cases. Singapore, 43. Japan, 26, and now it's even more than that. It's more like 60 in Japan, because they've also got a cruise ship full of people, and I think they even have 60 cases just on the cruise ship alone. I think the latest figures was 60 cases on the cruise ship out of 136 passengers that are still on board. The Philippines have had 3 cases and 1 death. United Kingdom has had 4 cases. India has had 3. Cambodia has had 1. Sri Lanka 1. Nepal 1. Finland 1. Nepal is over there in the north side of India. Okay, it's right next to China. The virus is going to spread over there faster than anything. Okay, now over here, I wanted to show you this cruise ship set sail after coronavirus scare. After fears of the novel coronavirus kept docked for almost 2 days, the Royal Caribbean Anthem of the Seas cruise ship left port in New Jersey about 3 p.m. today and is en route to Bermuda, according to the revised itinerary from the cruise line. Customer service representative for Royal Caribbean confirmed to CNN that the ship has departed New Jersey. 4 passengers that were evaluated for the coronavirus have all tested negative and were discharged from the hospital, according to the statement from New Jersey Governor Phil Murphy. Okay, that's the latest from there. Okay, so we've got that information. So with that said, let's go over here. I'm going to bring up the I'm going to go ahead and bring up the earthquakes now, and we can talk about earthquakes here. I'm going to first talk about the big earthquakes that have happened today, so you'll know exactly what is going on. Over here in the South Sandwich Islands early this morning, we had a large 5.1 magnitude earthquake. This is over in the South Atlantic Ocean. Like I said, in the South Sandwich Islands, down here on the North Antarctic Ridge. The North Antarctic Ridge here, okay? Over here in Carpathos, Greece, we had another 5.0 magnitude earthquake. Now this is an area, I'm going to bring this up here. Carpathos, Greece is off the coast of Turkey, between Greece and Turkey right here. It's just east of Crete. So Carpathos, Greece, this was 73 kilometers east of Carpathos, Greece. Again, this was out into the Mediterranean Sea. The Mediterranean Sea. So this large earthquake didn't do any damage because it was out in the water. And as we've discussed before, the water absorbs most of the shock waves. It dampens the sharp seismic waves, where when it does hit land, when the seismic energy does hit land, it's not as tremendously dangerous as it was when it was at the epicenter. Okay, so that's what happened there in Greece today. Now, again, this is only, I won't try to hoodwink you and say this is all the earthquakes that have happened. It's not. But I want to show you these earthquakes because this is the majority of what is, I can't say the majority, but the bigger quakes that have hit the world today that you need to know about. Over here off the coast of El Salvador today, if you remember, we had a 5.0 here off the coast of El Salvador yesterday. Again, this is the San Andreas Fault as it comes out of California, going down here through the Gulf of California, all the way down here through by the coast of Mexico, and all the way down here to Central America. This was off the coast. This earthquake is an aftershock of the 5 that was here yesterday. Now, they did have an earthquake over here in Rancho Honduras, over on the east side of El Salvador. There's Honduras is over here. They had a 4.4 moderate quake there. And yes, it might be considered an aftershock because it's only maybe 100 or so miles from where this 5.0 was yesterday. So it might be an aftershock of that 5.0. Okay. There's a few more places that I want to show you before we leave the USGS map. Over here, east of India. India is this country right here. Now, USGS is reporting this to be a 5.0 earthquake, 172 kilometers northeast of Bamboo Flat, India. Okay. For that to be the case, Bamboo Flat, I have not done the geography to find out where Bamboo Flat is, but for this earthquake to be northeast, Bamboo Flat would have to be down in here. Why would they not measure from over here? That's closer to the earthquake. It's over closer to India right here. Or they could have measured it from Burma. Burma's right up here, also on the fault. Okay, they could have measured it from Vietnam. Vietnam's right here. They didn't do it. But this 5.0 is actually north of Sumatra. This is Sumatra right here. Now I'm going to take you back and show you the EMSC map where you can see there's 2 earthquakes right up here in northern Sumatra. And then there's this one 5.0 out in the North Indian Ocean right here. But it's on the fault. Okay, it's on the fault. Over here near Jakarta, Indonesia, there's a 4.9 5.0 magnitude quake right here, 36 kilometers west of Tugu. Tugu Hilir, Hilir, Tugu Hilir, Indonesia here. Okay, this one, second, let me go back here. It's over here on the southern tip, right below Jakarta area. Okay, it's a 4.9 5.0. It's a fairly good sized quake. Okay, it's a fairly decent sized quake. It's right out here on the north tail of the South Java Island here. This is South Java. Okay, so I want to show you that. There's also another quake among many, many other quakes, and I don't know why USGS does this, because we have a lot of 4s all over here in central Indonesia, but USGS is over reporting this 4.3 over here. Again, it's in the Banda Sea here, and it's on an earthquake fault here. This is the Banda Sea, and it's on an earthquake fault. So again, this earthquake being a moderate earthquake, it absolutely did not do any damage, and I doubt from the location where the epicenter is, I doubt anybody even felt it over here on one of these other islands here, or over here in Papua New Guinea, or not Papua New Guinea, Papua Indonesia. But there's a bunch of other 3s and 4s all over this area that I'm going to show you. Now, I'm going to go over here. Over here in the Pacific Ocean, right here, is the North Mariana Islands. Again, USGS is not showing an earthquake that happened here. It's a moderate earthquake. I'll show it to you in a minute. Then north over here, excuse me, not north. It's north of there, but off the east coast of Japan. There's a 4.6, 147 kilometers east-northeast of Hachio, Jima, Japan, right here. 4.6. Then over here near Tokyo, I believe it's just southwest of Tokyo, a 3.29 kilometers south of Kobe, Japan. Then over here, also right next to the earthquake fault here, is another 4.8 magnitude earthquake off the coast of Honshu, Japan. This is Honshu right here. Okay. Now, I'm not going to show you any more earthquakes on the USGS map, except for one that just happened over here in Puerto Rico. I'm going to show you that because it's a fairly decent sized quake. It's off the coast of Puerto Rico, off the south coast of Puerto Rico, about 5 miles. It's a 3.3 magnitude earthquake. Now, we spoke with Dominic from the Puerto Rican Police Agency, and he was talking about how those 3s, 3.3, 3.5, 3.7 earthquakes are hitting there, and they're feeling them like they're 5s or 6s. Now, it may be that the agencies are not telling these guys in Puerto Rico exactly how strong these earthquakes really are. They may be much stronger than they are being reported as. That would not surprise me at all either. Now, I have done absolutely no investigation to find out that exact information, but I will promise you I will look into it. Because if I find out that these earthquakes are much stronger than this, there's going to be heck to pay. because I'm going to look into it. Okay, after talking with Dominic the other day, I'm going to look into it. So we have this 3.3 there. We've got a 3.0 there. Right over here we have a 2.5, a 3.3 again right there, off the coast of Guanica, Puerto Rico. Down here further out to sea, about 10 miles out in the Caribbean Ocean, we have a 3.3 there. Okay, but this one just happened. This 3.3 off the coast of Puerto Rico just happened. 5 miles southwest of Guanica, Puerto Rico. Those are the earthquakes that have just happened. These are the earthquakes that have the most potential for damage at this point in time. However, that's not all, folks. There's more. I get a lot of spam. I just got notified that there's a shipping notice from Amazon. I've not ordered anything from Amazon. Bunch of liars. Okay, I'm going to show you the earthquakes. I'm going to show you the earthquakes. There's a few that you need to know about here. Not going to hide them from you. You need to know about it. Again, down here, the South Sandwich Islands, we had a 5 today. Yesterday, we had a 3 up here in Iceland, 3 up here in Iceland, and we had a moderate earthquake up here along the North Mid-Atlantic Fault up here, right between Iceland and well, Greenland, not Iceland, Svalbard. Svalbard's here and Greenland's here. It was right here, north west of Svalbard. However, today we've got another earthquake up here on the east side of Svalbard, a 3.1 magnitude quake up here today, east of Svalbard. Okay, up in the Northern Territory area of the Atlantic Ocean. All right. There was also an earthquake that I want to tell you about in the Kuril Islands between Japan and Russia. Kamchatka, Russia, we have a 4.2 magnitude earthquake there. 4.2 magnitude earthquake right there. Okay, now this is the Sea of Okhotsk. This is the Sea of Okhotsk, it's not land. The only land we have right here is the Kamchatka Peninsula, Russia. The Sea of Okhotsk is right here. Okay, so it's off the coast down there. And that energy is going to travel up this earthquake fault and over here to the Aleutian Islands. Okay, that's what's going to happen with that. Now, there's another earthquake, or several earthquakes that I want to discuss with you over in Hawaii. Over in Hawaii. Now, yesterday I showed you an earthquake that was off the south east coast of the Big Island. Today we have 2 of them. Got a 2.41 and a 2.03 off the coast of Pahala. You notice these earthquakes up here? We're going to be talking about them too. There's 20 plus earthquakes around Pahala, but these 2.41 and 2.03 are off the coast there. Okay, you can see there's a crater there, there's a crater over here, there's several cones up and down this whole area. You can see where there's been magma beneath the ocean there. Magma all over the place. again, Hawaii was made by volcanoes. It was built by volcanoes. So anyway, look at the swarm. Look at the large swarm of earthquakes here. This is 20 plus earthquakes over near Pahala. Now again, I'm not going to show you every earthquake. I'm going to tell you about it. 2.2s, 2.3s, 2.6s. In fact, I'm going to show you the 2.6. This is on the south end. The south end. Here's a 1.82 right just north of or east or west of there. But this was a 2.68 here, and just west of there was a 1.68. But there's a bunch of twos here: 2.28, 2.20, 1.76, 2.25, 2.46. Let me turn down the light on this too. Forgot to do that. Sorry about that. Okay. .83, 2.55. The majority of them are 2.2 or greater. The biggest we've seen is a 2.8 down here near Pahala. Now, as we've told you before, we've done the research. The reason Pahala is having so many earthquakes is because the magma underneath the surface is flowing up towards Kilauea. Up towards Kilauea. Let me bring up this earthquake that's a 2.45 here. The depth is 16.4 miles. 16.4 miles down into the magma chamber beneath Hawaii. Okay, most of these earthquakes are going to be the same way. Let's bring up this one here. This is the 2.11. The depth, 19.9 miles. Again, it's right into the Hawaii's magma chamber down here. It's a deep magma chamber. Okay, so that's what's going on. Pahala is getting hit because they have, or it has magma beneath the surface that's headed for Kilauea. Now let's go over to Kilauea. Since I first located this earlier today, we only had 3 earthquakes north of Kilauea, north and west of Kilauea. Right now, we have a total of 6. 2 on the south part of the crater, a 2.04 and a 1.84 on the south side of Kilauea crater. Then we have one on the southwest end, a 1.78. Okay. Then we have 3 directly north in the crater itself. Now, what you are seeing right here is an old picture. This whole area here is down in the crater itself. Once the magma fell and left the crater, went down into the east rift zone of Leilani Estates, this whole area fell. All this rock is in the crater now, down deep in the crater. So these earthquakes are actually in part, or in the crater itself. So let's take a look at that. We've got a 1.47, a 1.99, and a 1.70. These are in the Kilauea crater itself. Okay, so we've had a total of 6 earthquakes in and around the Kilauea crater today. We only had these 3 earlier. We've had these 2 and one other up here, northwest of the crater. I'm sorry, southwest of the crater. Okay. That's not all, folks. There's more. Over on the north side of Mauna Loa, we have a 1.87 magnitude earthquake there. There's Mauna Loa right there. Okay, so we have that earthquake there. And we have one on the top, the southern rim of Mauna Loa. This one's a 2.46. So there's two earthquakes at Mauna Loa today. One on the north side, one on the south side rim of Mauna Loa. Okay. Is that surprising to you? Maybe a little. Earthquakes hitting the volcanoes, magma causing those earthquakes, folks. That's exactly what's happened. That's exactly what has happened. Now, I'm not going to spend much time in Alaska, but they've had their share of earthquakes today. They've had their share. They're swarming earthquakes there. I'm going down to Oldalama volcano. They have 1.7 activity. Oldalama volcano. 2.6. Let's go up to Mount Redoubt volcano. We have a 2.3 there. 2.3. 1.7. And then way north of there, and it's not even affiliated with Mount Redoubt, it's a 1.80 in Nikiski, Alaska. Okay, let's go over to Anchorage. Anchorage, 6 miles north of Anchorage, we had a 2.50. 2.50. Big Lake 1.3, and Nick Fairview, Alaska, we had a 1.8. Okay. We go over to Denali National Park, and the only earthquakes we have, one is on the base end, the base of the mountain on the east side, it's a 1.5, and then further west we have a 2.1. Okay. Down on the southeast side, we have a 1.2. Then up here on the northwest side, we have a 1.7. And over on the northeast side, we have a 1.8. So nothing actually hitting Mount McKinley today. It's all around Mount McKinley. Nothing else is going on. So it's just a bunch of ones. Just a bunch of ones. Fairbanks, Alaska, 1.4. Manly Hot Springs today had a 3.21. Central Alaska, 3.21. Then over in Kobuk, Alaska, where this time last year, we had a 6.3. We had a 2.0 aftershock. A 2.0 aftershock over in Kobuk, Alaska. Nothing else happened north of the Arctic Circle. Nothing happened north of the Arctic Circle here. All quiet on the northern front. Now, over here in Washington State, I'm going to go over here to the PNSN, the Pacific Northwest Seismic Network. As soon as it loads. We're going to go over here to seismograms and fact, I don't think I did this. Okay, let me do this right here so you can see it. Okay, now you can see it. We're going over to seismograms. We're going to click on map. Okay. Let the thing settle down here. We're going to put over here, search for station. We want Mount Baker, MBW. MBW. Mount Baker. Okay. Over here, view seismogram. We know things have been going on there. Okay. This is just since we've been on the air. This happened, this recording started at 4 o'clock this afternoon. We went on the air at 6 p.m. You notice there is some magma infill going on. Right here, this line is getting thicker here. There's magma infill going on. Right here, we have a steam ejection right here. We have a steam ejection right here. Let's find out what happened earlier today, before 4 o'clock today. Bingo. Right here is midnight last night. Right here is midnight last night where you see my cursor. Everything else here has been earlier today. We've had steam eruptions all day long. Look at all these steam eruptions. Steam, 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 steam. All day today at Mount Baker. Okay, that's there. Let's go back. Let's go back to Rainier. RVC, Rainier Voigt Creek. RVC. Mount Rainier Voigt Creek. Look at this, folks. More steam. Mount Rainier is steaming. Let's go earlier in the day. That's just since 4 o'clock. Look at this. Yesterday at 4 o'clock through midnight. Midnight is right here. And then this is continuing today. This is continuing today. There was a light shaker, maybe a 1 right here. Happened about 7:30 today. Look at all the steam eruptions. Mount Rainier has been steaming again. Okay, that's what happened. So Mount Rainier is steaming. Let's go over to Mount St. Helens. Okay, that's since 4 o'clock today. We have magma infill going on. You can see the thick lines here. Let's find out what happened earlier today. And I should have had these ready for you, but I thought, what the heck, I just play it by ear here. We have magma infill going on. We had a small quake right there. We had a steam ejection here, 1 here. We had another small earthquake here in steam that happened at approximately 12:30 today. Okay, magma all day long. So Mount St. Helens is steaming as well. Mount St. Helens is steaming as well. Okay, let's go over to Mount Hood. TDH, Tom, Dick, and Harry. I used to have some friends named Tom, Dick, and Harry. Okay, magma infill going on since 4 o'clock today. You can see the magma here, the little spikes, the blurb here, or the blobs. Check out the earlier today. Check out the seismo earlier today. Look, folks, this is last night at midnight. We have a small quake here, probably a 3. I'm looking at duration. Duration here. Again, here we've got magma going on. Look at that, how thick that black line is here. We have steam again. These are steam spikes. Steam spikes. And this is probably one here too. Okay. We have magma infill going on at Mount Hood. Okay. Fascinating. Okay. We could go on and on and on. But that's what's going on in the Cascadia region. That's what's going on in the Cascadia region. We do have earthquakes. They're not reporting them. Of course they're not reporting them. What would you expect? What would you expect out of the agencies? They don't report anything. Back in 2012, the University of Oregon seismology team put a bunch of sensors, 55 sensors, off the coast of Oregon here. Off the coast of Oregon here. 2 years later, in 2014, they wrote a white paper. The white paper suggested that there's 80,000 earthquakes a year happening off the coast. If that's the case, folks, why are they not reporting them? You don't see any earthquakes reported up here in the Cascadia region, do you? They're not reporting them. I just showed you a couple small ones in the major mountains there. And that's not all the major mountains either. I only showed you 3. Okay? I could spend all night showing you just the Cascades. But I just showed you what is going on. These volcanoes are steaming. There's small quakes happening in the volcano. Earthquakes are hitting the volcanoes. We continue to talk about it. We continue to talk about it. Okay? I want to show you what happened over in Yellowstone today. Up in northern Montana today. And they're not reporting them. If you go look at Mary Greeley's report earlier today, they have unreported earthquakes all over Yellowstone. But I'm showing 2, 4, 6, 8, 17 earthquakes here. 17 earthquakes affiliated with the large Yellowstone magma chamber the size of 11 Grand Canyons. Let's start up here in northern Washington. We have a 1.1 up in Big Fork, Montana. Okay, I'm sorry, 1.21, Big Fork, Montana. Ronan, Montana, directly south of there, we have a 1.4. Southeast of there, we have a 1.02. I'm sorry, it just disappeared. A 1.02. That was at Lincoln, Montana. Just south of there, Butte, Montana, we have a 1.82. Right near there, in that same area, Whitehall, Montana, a minus 0.88, meaning it's up inside of a mountain above sea level, a minus 0.88. Okay, let's drop down here a little bit west, south and west. In Dillon, Montana, we have a 1.6. Sorry, a 1.6 there. Then let's tap out that 9. Manhattan, Montana, 0.45. Manhattan, Montana is just northwest of Billings. Northwest of Billings. Okay. We've got several more earthquakes down here, 5 to be exact, right almost next to each other. 24 miles east-northeast of Old Faithful, we have a 2.35. Now this is significant, folks. We don't normally get 2s up here, and when we do, they don't report them, but we got it here. 1.87 just south of there. Okay, that was 24 miles east-northeast of Old Faithful. Let's drop down a little bit more. 23 miles east-northeast of Old Faithful, we have a 0.76. And just southeast of there, just a wee little bit in Yellowstone National Park, a 1.91 in the park. Now we have one other earthquake here. It's in the lake, Yellowstone Lake. We have a 0.57, a 0.57 in the lake. Fascinating, huh? Interesting. Interesting. Now we have several more earthquakes here. Actually, 2 more earthquakes. Also affiliated with Yellowstone Magma Chamber, south of the lake. This one is 18 miles southeast of Old Faithful Geyser, 0.59. And this one just southeast of there, a 1.12, also 18 miles southeast of Old Faithful Geyser. Okay. All of these are in the Yellowstone Magma Chamber area, in the park. In the park. Okay. Does any of this surprise you? Probably not. Probably not. It probably shouldn't excite you. You know it's happening. And there were many other earthquakes than this around the park. They're just not telling us about it. Okay? So far, we've shown you 17 earthquakes. 17 earthquakes. And then there's one more. South Park, Wyoming. We had a 1.9. 1.9 South Park, Wyoming. And there's quite a few more earthquakes that they're not telling us about. Okay, let's drop down to Utah. Beaver, Utah, central Utah. This one is not that far off of Interstate 15. It goes right through Beaver. This is 0.62 earthquake. Black Rock Desert volcano area. Okay, Southwest of there, Enoch, Utah. Enoch, Utah, 2.36. What I found here is very interesting. We've even got some oil and gas pumping operations down here in Enoch, Utah. This is also affiliated with the Black Rock Desert volcano. Okay, that's not all, folks. There's more. Just west of St. George is a place called Enterprise, Utah, a 1.03 magnitude earthquake there. So we have one earthquake up here in Beaver, and these other two are just south of there, Enoch and Enterprise, Utah. Okay. Then we go over here to Beatty, Nevada, almost directly southwest of there. We have a 0.50 in Beatty, Nevada. Okay. Up in near Reno, look at what we have up here in Reno here. We've got a small swarm here. And then up here further north, what do we have up there? Gerlach, Nevada, 2.1 up there. Over here around Reno, Sierra, California, 1.3. There's another earthquake there too. It's a 1.3 and another 1.3. This is in Downeyville, California. Okay, let's go east. Reno, Nevada, 0.6. Over near Fernley, 21 miles northwest of Fernley, Nevada, we have a 0.3. Okay, let's drop down. Smith Valley, Nevada, 0.9. Gardnerville, Rancheros, 1.4. Then we're going to drop down here. Wonder what we have here, folks. Can you say Mammoth Mountain? Mammoth Mountain is 0.97. Okay. 1.04, 0.23, 1.42. I think that volcano has a lot of activity, don't you? Yeah, it does. It does. This 10 plus, it's at the geysers. We talked about that before. Let's go down over towards San Francisco. Aromas, California. We have a 1.52 just east of San Francisco. The Pinnacles, south of Monterey Bay, southeast of Monterey Bay, we have a 1.0. That's in a volcanic area down there on the San Andreas Fault. The Pinnacles, again, a 1.1 there. King City, just on the west side of the major fault. King City, 2.7. And right on the fault, San Lucas, California, 1.85. 1.85 right there. Let's go further south and east here. Okay. What do we have? Cozo Junction, Devil's Kitchen, 1.55. Dropping down through the Mojave, Little Lake is 0.62. We have a small bunch of earthquakes here. Still Little Lake, 1.25, 1.65, 2.04 Searles Valley. Continue south, Searles Valley, 1.69, Trona, California, 1.88. Trona had most of the damage when the Ridgecrest earthquakes hit. Johannesburg, California on the Garlock Fault. Johannesburg, a 1.1. Bodefish, California, northwest of there, 1.17. I'm sorry. There's 1.17 Bodefish. I'm continuing down here towards the fault. Arvin, California, 1.22, just east of the San Andreas here. Let's go west, southwest. Valencia, California, north of Los Angeles. Valencia, 1.66. Okay, going back toward the fault. Little Rock, California, is 0.65. Okay, let's go down towards LA. Actually, Riverside, California now. Home Gardens over near Glen Avon. This was a 1.36 Home Gardens near Glen Avon, California. South of there, Lakeland Village. This is a 0.8. Sorry, 0.8 Lakeland Village. Okay. Go back up to Yucaipa, California on the fault. This one's a 1.1. And let's go take a look at these here real quick. San Jacinto, California. There's a mountain there, folks. San Jacinto is a mountain. I've climbed this mountain. It's a 0.78. 2 miles east of San Jacinto. Okay, I've climbed that mountain. It's like 8,000 feet high. San Jacinto and Mount Gorgonio. Vala Vista, southeast of there, 0.99. And Idlewild, California. Again, up in the San Bernardino Mountains, part of the Anza Gap. Idlewild, California came in today with a 1.06. The Anza Gap. We've got earthquakes here. The Anza Gap here. Let's drop down towards Palomar Observatory, 1 mile northeast of Palomar. We have a 0.52. Palomar Mountain continues to get hit. Okay. Another 0.89. This time it's 1 mile south of Palomar. 1 mile south of the observatory. There's the observatory right there. Okay. That was the observatory. North San Diego County. North San Diego County. Northeast San Diego County, Borrego Springs, a 2.56. A 1.2. Then we drop over to the east side of the Chocolate Mountains. These are the Chocolate Mountains. We go over to Ocotillo Wells, 1.87. Over near the Salton Sea. Over near the Salton Sea. Now, folks, we have nothing else in the Imperial Valley at all. Nothing in the Imperial Valley for the first time in 2 weeks. Nothing in the Imperial Valley. However, we've had other earthquakes. Loving, New Mexico, we have a 2.7 here. And we had a 2.5 east of there in Mentone, Texas, and they've taken it off the map. So here's a 2.7 in New Loving, Mexico. Or Loving, New Mexico, I'm sorry. Okay. Let's go over to the central part of the United States. Alva, Oklahoma, we have a 1.55. Throughout Oklahoma here, we've having earthquakes, 1.44, 1.64 in Moreland. Okeen, a 1.97. In Helena, Oklahoma, a 1.97 there as well. Pawnee, Oklahoma, 2.26. Got like 14 earthquakes. 14 earthquakes here in Oklahoma. Tuttle, Oklahoma again, 1.1. Sorry, there's Tuttle. 14 earthquakes in Oklahoma. Lindsay, Oklahoma, 1.94. All of these earthquakes in Oklahoma are right in the middle of oil and gas pumping operations. All of them. Every time I showed you Oklahoma, that's what's happened. Quinton, Oklahoma, 1.85. Got a total of 17 earthquakes in Oklahoma today. More earthquakes than I've seen there in a while. Okay? Nothing else in Canada or the eastern seaboard today. Nothing. A little surprising, maybe. So I thought we might. We've had earthquakes over here in Chile and Argentina. Chile and Argentina. Up in northern Peru, Ancash, Peru, we had a 3.6. Off the coast of Ecuador, we had a 4.0 today. That came in as a 4.2, was reduced. Over off the coast of Colombia, right on the coast, Noreste de Villa del Rosario, we had a 2.8. Then over off the coast of northeastern Venezuela, Sucre, Venezuela, we had a 3.6. A 3.6 in Sucre, Venezuela. Okay, now we've pretty much taken you on a tour of the world. Pretty much taken you on a tour of the world. Unfortunately, we're now at 8 p.m. 8:01 actually. I'm going to go over to the chat room real quick. Going to bring up the chat room. Let's take a look at, see what everybody's talking about tonight. Okay, I've got the chat room here. Let's see what's going on. ZZ Bear is here. Hello. Barb is here. Thank you for being here. Marianne Scarino is here. And Marianne is telling us about she's prepping for the coronavirus. She's homebound, she's disabled, and it's very hard to go anywhere. And I know the feeling. I hope you're all right. I hope you get better. If you're feeling poorly, please, we pray for you that you'll get better. ZZ Bear is talking about the elite political figures throughout the world. They're all part of the club. ZZ Bear says, yes, we're late in the game. You're absolutely right. We're late in the game. I've been doing this now for a year. I've been watching Dutch before that, for several years before that. Unfortunately, things haven't gotten any better. They've actually gotten worse, and I wish we'd been on the air long before now. I wish that we would have had Terry on board still. I wish we would have had Terry on board a long time ago, before, when he was just watching Dutch's channel. But maybe we'll get Dutch back, or maybe we'll get Terry back one day here. He says he's not going to come back on this network, and I'm not going to get into it anymore. I will be talking to Terry and working with him, getting information to you, but he says he's not going to come back on the network. Larry, it's good to see you too. And by the way, Larry has got a messenger group that he started um, for people that want information on emergency disasters and instructions and such. I'm sure he has already notified many of you about this discussion group, if you will. It's called Warnings and Other Information. So the majority of you are already pretty much been notified of that. If there's anything that we can do to help you, we will. I've already told Larry that I will always be available to Larry and Terry and anybody else that needs help. We're going to be continuing to collect emergency and disaster information from all around the world. This isn't going to stop. If we come on news conferences, if we can go live and give you the news conference, we will. We will. Casmario is here. Just sent me a message just a little while ago. 4.7 magnitude earthquake swarm, 4.2 Bittner Butte, Blowout Mountain, Painted Point Butte, Black Hills Buttes. You sent me all sorts of information here. Casmario, thank you. I appreciate you, brother. Really do. Casmario, you're something else. I'm so glad to have you here. 2.1 magnitude earthquake, northern Nevada, 3 miles south of the Oregon border. Of course, again, they're not going to report it. We showed you those earthquakes. Warnings and other information. They keep giving us information here. I have a lot of great people that send me information all day long, and I appreciate you all. I really appreciate you all. But anyway, we're going to get out of here. We've now gone overtime here. I'm not sure whether Freedom Revolution has another person on. I think they do have another person on Monday evening after we got off. That's why we first came here to 6 p.m. But I want to thank everybody that has been joining us tonight. Thank you, everybody, for your information and keeping us updated on things that are going on, not just with Cascadia, not just with earthquakes, but the coronavirus as well, and everything going on in the world. We appreciate it, and we want you guys to keep getting that information. Why? Because it's very important. It's very, very important to everybody. Not just me, it's important to everybody. We need to keep on top of everything. If we don't, we're not going to have anything. We really won't. I promise you we won't. It's not even worth it. Okay? We need to keep on top of all the information that we can possibly get. We need to be ready. We need to be prepared. I'm going to tell you now that I'm hoping that you will get your emergency preparedness kits and keep them in order. Keep your preparedness kits in order. Why? It's very important, especially now. You never know what's going to happen. You really won't. You never know what is going on. If you don't keep up with it, when something happens, you're going to be left out. And something could happen to you. And honestly, I prefer that not happen. I prefer that not happen. Because I want to see everybody happy. And I know realistically, that that's not being very realistic, but I want to be able to help save as many lives as possible. So get your emergency plans in order. That's one. Get your emergency plans in order. Get your emergency kits. We are lucky to have My Patriot Supply as one of our supporters on our program, one of our advertisers. They have great food and they have a lot of other great products, including the Alexa Pure water purifier, which I'm going to be ordering very shortly. Okay, it's awesome. But check out My Patriot Supply. Okay, check out My Patriot Supply. You won't be disappointed. You won't be disappointed. Also, before we leave the channel, leave the air tonight, I want to give a shout out to my friend Red, who has several programs on our radio Freedom Revolution Network. Her son got run over by a truck. He's in the hospital in ICU still. He's doing a lot better. He came out from a induced coma, and he's been cracking jokes and saying things that he shouldn't say, which means he's back on the mend. We hope and pray that's the case. And they pulled tubes out of him today. He seems to be doing better. Also, those of you that can, I know you usually just donate to our program, Emergency Management Associates, through PayPal or through the Freedom Revolution Network. Please, if you will, donate to the Freedom Revolution Network and put Red on it. Red is in need of money. She and her family don't have insurance. They're in a hospital in Colorado Springs. They're staying in the Ronald McDonald Center. They don't provide food, and it costs them $20 a day to stay at the Ronald McDonald Center. It's like a hotel for families with family members in the hospital. And they can't go out after 10 o'clock at night. They can't leave the hotel after 10 p.m. at night. And they can't bring food into their rooms. It's not like a normal hotel. But they are in need of help. So make a donation on the Freedom Revolution Network, whatever you can, and make it to RED, R-E-D. And you can also donate to our channel here or to our PayPal here. All the information is here. Okay? I'm going to say sayonara. God bless you. Do know that we love you. And as Walter Cronkite would say, and that's the way it is. Monday, September 10th, 2020. For Emergency Management Associates, this is Ron Tyler. Have a great evening, folks. Good night, everybody.